Hello. So I'm Mike Emo, and we're going to continue with our introduction to Angular. If you look here on the screen, you'll see that I'm up here at GitHub, emomon23, intro to Angular, and I've clicked on my commits. So if you're at here on the main intro to Angular page on GitHub, if you click on the commits, you'll see that I have 10 commits. Here's my list of commits. Okay, and what we're going to do today is we're actually going to implement this distinct filters function only. And I just wanted to point out, one of the things you can do throughout this exercise, if you want to hack on this solution, if you want to experiment, if you want to see what you can do with it, if you want to break it, fix it, do whatever you want with it, get off track, that's fine, because all you need to do to get back on track is to do a forced checkout of any one of these hashes, and you'll be back with us. So for example, I'm going to go here to Git GUI, and I'm going to open up my repository that we created in the very first video. And you'll see that I've got a bunch of changes here. It's showing that I added this Angular demo to the title. I added my controllers. I created my Sports Your Way app and Sports Your Way controller. And so I made these changes. So if we try to do a checkout, Git's not going to like that. It's going to say, hey, you've got some changes. You need to stash or commit these changes before you can do a checkout. That's why we're going to do a forced checkout. Say, just ignore my changes, blow them away, and check out the commit that I'm telling you to check out. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do that right now. So repository git bash, and you see that it shows right here that I'm in my Sports Your Way repository in the command in the console window. And I'm going to say git checkout, and I'm going to put in this hash right here. And when I put in this hash, I'm going to say cc342. That's all I need to do. Enough for it to find it. And I'm going to say /f for force. And you'll see that that did work. So I'm at cc342b5. So if I open up my Visual Studio now, it's going to tell me my code has been modified outside of my environment. Do you want to reload? So I'm going to go ahead and say reload. And if we look here now, you'll see that I've got files in here. I've got this distinct categories file, so I can actually see what was in that commit. I don't want to do this because we're actually going to build this functionality in this next video. So I'm going to go ahead and check out the previous version. We'll say git checkout B1B7B, which is this commit down here, our first original commit. And since I haven't changed any files, I just did the checkout, but I haven't actually modified any files, I don't have to force it. I don't have to do the /f. I can, doesn't matter. And so now we see here I am back at B1B7B. So I'm back at this commit. And so throughout this exercise, again, feel free, hack on this thing, play with it, experiment with it. Whenever you want to get back on track with the lesson, or if you want to skip ahead and maybe you just want to take a look at every one of these commits and then see what you can figure out on your own, and then go through the video. That's kind of one of the things I love about this approach is getting people back on track is quite easy. So we're going to get started. I'm going to close this down here, and we're going to see my project's been reloaded. So I got to reload all. And when I do reload, if we look here, we're going to see that filters file is no longer there. You see this categories here? Categories go here. This is the first bit of functionality that I want to implement. Now, if you remember from the first video, I showed how all of my categories, all of my data is inside this dummy data, because my .NET developers, they're over on the back end working on the web API portion, which I do have implemented here, and we're going to see what that looks like. But in this hypothetical scenario, we're the UI side, we're the front end side, we're developing all this. They're working on the back end. We've agreed on the data model, what it's going to look like. And so we've just created some dummy data. So we got some dummy data model so that we can continue on with our functionality and get started. So if we look here, we're going to see that I've got these categories. Category, 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 category. So I need to pull these categories out of here and get them to show up in this list. So that's what we're going to do next. So the first thing we're going to do is come over here to our scripts, custom, filters folder, and we're going to create a new file. So we're going to add a JavaScript file, and we're going to call it distinct categories.js. Okay. And the first thing we need to do when we're in here is we need to get access to our sports app module. So we come in here to angular.module. I just want to make a note that in the first video I think we call it sports UR app. The actual name that's up in GitHub is sports app. Theoretically, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can leave it that way. You just got to remember that we've named it that. I'm just going to change. I changed it, and I'm going to be using the correct name as it looked reflected in GitHub for the rest of the video. So sports angular.module sports app.filter, and the filter takes a name and a factory function. So we're going to call this distinct categories, and we're going to pass in a function. And this function is going to return another function. That's why I call it a factory function. So I'm going to say return function. And what is going to get passed into this worker function is a list of all of our products. Okay? And so we're going to call this list of products. I like to write verbose code. So this is going to be some verbose code. So we got this list of products. Now the first thing I want to do is I just want to see if this list of products is actually defined, if it actually equals anything, because if it doesn't, then let's not proceed, let's just return. So if Angular is so this method is going to end up returning an array. And so what I'm simply doing here is saying if list of products is undefined, then just return an empty array. Don't throw any errors, just return an empty array. So now we got to work on our actual logic. Okay, so here we are. We've created this filter. And the first thing we've done is we've got up to the Angular, we've requested our sports app module, so it finds an existing module that we created earlier. And we're simply adding a new filter to its list of its collection of filters. And we're naming this filter the distinct categories. So remember that later on we're gonna reference this filter. And because this filter is within the module sports app, Angular is gonna go look at our module, go through all of our filters, saying, do you got a filter named distinct categories? If it does, it returns this factory function, which will return our worker function. Our worker function, again, I changed this from is undefined to is array. So verify, which if it's undefined, is array is going to equal false. So if it's not an array, just return an empty array. Otherwise, set up these two variables. We're going to do a for each, and we're going to loop through our list of products using the Angular for each method, and checking to make sure that do we already have this category? Because we want a distinct list of categories. So first check and see if we've already grabbed this category, product category. And if we haven't, go ahead and define it. So now we know next time that we have grabbed it. And then push it onto our results array. And then after you finish with this loop, just go ahead and return this distinct list of string categories. So now we need to go ahead and actually use this method. You have to make sure that you include this JavaScript file in your default HTML after your controller. So make sure that's the first thing. A lot of times what I'll do is once I create a file, I'll go paste that reference, copy that into wherever I need it so I don't forget. Now you can use require.js with Angular. I went through an exercise a while back figuring out how to do that. I didn't want to confuse this lesson. I wanted to focus on Angular, so we're not going to be using require.js. Personally, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I'm not sure that I would actually use it in a real project. I would probably do something similar to this myself, but whatever works. So we're referencing our distinct filters. Now, here is where I actually want to display some categories. So I'm going to go here. First thing I want to do is I want to create a home button. So I'm just going to say home. And let's go ahead and save that. I like to just verify that my stuff is working before I go too far. And great, I got a home button. So now I want to duplicate that. I want to have the same exact button for all of my categories underneath. So to do that, I'm going to use the ng repeat. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say ng repeat equals for each prod category in. Now this is kind of the weird syntax. So stick with me. I'm going to walk you through what's going on here. In data dot products, and I'm going to use the pipe here to reference my distinct categories. Okay, and then all I want to write out is my prod category. So this is kind of a weird syntax. You know, when I give this talk, I tell people, you know, imagine that there's curly braces around here, and that this whole chunk of code is getting treated as what the enumerator is being put on, and it is. So this categories here is going to have our entire list of products. That's why I named that variable list of products passed into it. This thing is going to process it, and then it's going to get passed out. And then we could tack on other filters, which we'll do here in a little bit. And this whole chunk of logic is going to get treated as the thing that we're going to enumerate through. Well, if you remember a moment ago, we implemented this filter, and this filter returns a list of strings of categories. So we're going to say for each product category in this product list of category strings, display that category. So you don't actually put parentheses around here. That was just for the lesson's sake. So I'm going to get that off of there. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Save all this, and let's see if we got anything. Ah, look at that. We've got our tools and our fishing lures. But wait, there's more. I want this sorted. I'd like to have my fishing lures before my tools, but I do want it to be underneath my home. I want home to be on the top, and then I want everything underneath that to be ordered. Well, because I put home as its standalone link, that's fine. I can just leave that there. All I need to do here is tack on another filter. So what I'm going to say here is order by category. So take these products, pass them into this order by all my products by the category. So get them all grouped by category. Then take that list and pass it over here to the distinct filters, which will loop through and pull out the distinct list of filters. Take that whole mess, and that's what I want to loop through. Let's see how this looks. And let's go look here. What is wrong? Nothing's wrong. Ah, I know what's wrong. So when I first did it, it didn't work. That's because I forgot to put quotes, single quotes around my order by field. Let's try that again. Ah, there we go. Voila, it worked. All right, great. But you know, the next thing I want to do is I actually want to filter on these categories. But before I even filter, what I'd really like is I'd like this UI. I would like it to indicate which is the currently selected category, like highlight the currently selected category. So to do that, I'm going to interact with my controller via the scope. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say whenever you click one of these buttons, I want you to go over to my controller, my scope, and I want you to call an event method that I'm going to implement on that. And so I'm going to say ng-click equals set current category. And here I'm going to say set it to home. And down here, I'm going to say ng-click equals set current category. And I'm going to pass in the prod category that was actually clicked on. Okay. So let's go ahead and set this up. Now, do you remember when I said in a previous video that the scope was similar to the view bag in ASP MVC? Well, here's where that analogy breaks down, because you wouldn't actually put functions on your scope. You put those on the controller. Well, in Angular, we're actually going to put the functions on the scope itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our main controller that this thing is interacting with. So it's interacting with the sports app controller. So we got to go over here to our main controller. Here's our sports app controller. And I want to define this function now. I'm going to say scope dot set current category, selected category. And I do this all the time. I've been doing this for years, and I still do that. All right. So there we go. So we're going to set the current category, and we're going to set the selected category. Now what I want to do up here is I'm going to create a private, think of it as a private var to hold on to this category. So I'm going to say var current category equals, and I'm just going to default it to home. I'm going to say when this thing first loads, the default category is going to be set to home. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say current category equals selected category. So that's all I'm going to do here. Okay. Nothing too big here. Just to show you, I'm just going to say alert selected category. Do the old school alert. And let's see what happens when I click on this. I clicked on home. I clicked on fishing lures. I clicked on tools. All right, great. Let's get rid of that alert. Don't want that in there. So what do we do with this now that we know that what the selected category is? Well, the next thing I want to do is go into this code and into my default, and I want to set the class on here, but I want to use Angular to set the class. So I'm going to set up this directive here, this ng class. This is another Angular built-in directive, equals get category status style, I don't know, and we'll pass in home. And if we come down here, we'll say ng class equals, and then here we're going to pass in our, can you guess what we're going to pass in? Category. So pass in the category that this particular link represents. Okay. So let's save this. And again, we got to go back to our scope because we interact with the view through the scope, and we need to put this method on there. Scope dot get selected category style equals function category in question. So remember how the home link is going to pass in the string home, and every other link, fishing lures, is going to pass in fishing lures, and tools is going to pass in tools. So if we got fishing lures, that's the category in question. If we got tools, tools will be the category in question. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say if the category in question equals the current category, so category in question equals current category. If that's the case, return btn primary. Else, just return an empty string. Save that, come back here, and there we go. So now I click on these categories, and you'll see that those are all set up. So one of the things I want to point out here is we've implemented some functionality. We've implemented the distinct list of categories. We've implemented a function for this click event, and we've implemented the ng class attribute to actually set these as the active category. If we go over here to GitHub, you'll see I've got this distinct categories filter function only. If you check out this file, you'll see our distinct categories.js file. If you check this commit out, you're going to see pretty much what we're up to right now. You're going to see that the buttons get highlighted and um, the selected category gets selected. And the next bit of functionality we're going to implement is the display products in the selected category. So we're actually going to go ahead and implement that in our next video, part 4, and check it out. And again, if you want to play and hack with this, when you're ready to come back to the lesson, just do a git checkout on the F4866, and you will be ready to begin the next lesson. Thanks.